Ethiopia and Eritrea, searching for peaceful solutions to a painful history, by Abebe Negash, peace advocate on behalf of Ethiopian Hearts for Peace and African Hearts for Peace. The relationship between Ethiopia and Eritrea is one of the most complicated in Africa. It is a story of shared history, painful separation, war, and endless questions about justice, survival, and peace. Today, the debate is centered on one pressing issue: Ethiopia's access to the sea. Since Eritrea became independent in 1993, Ethiopia has been landlocked. This situation has created tension, mistrust, and conflict for decades. But as a peace advocates, we must ask, how can Ethiopia and Eritrea move forward? Can historical injustices be addressed without more bloodshed? Can Ethiopia regain access to the Red Sea peacefully? And what role does international law or the global community play in this? This essay tries to explain these questions in simple language. It is not meant for politicians alone, but for ordinary people, farmers, mothers, students, and workers who carry the harvest burden when war breaks out. It is written with the belief that war is no longer an option. Ethiopia and Eritrea must find a path that guarantees justice, survival, and dignity without destroying each other. I have 8 points for you today. 1. The shared history of Ethiopia and Eritrea. To understand the current issue, we must go back in history. Eritrea, once part of the Ethiopian Empire, but became an Italian colony in the late 19th century. After World War II, Eritrea was placed under British administration, and later in 1952 it was federated with Ethiopia by a United Nations decision. However, in 1962, Ethiopia's Emperor Haile Selassie dissolved the federation and annexed Eritrea. This sparked a 30-year war for independence. The Eritrean People Liberation Front, EPLF, fought fiercely and finally, in 1991, toppled the Ethiopian military government with the help of Ethiopian rebel groups. In 1993, a referendum was held in Eritrea under UN supervision, and Eritreans voted overwhelmingly for independence. But here lies the controversy. Ethiopians at large were not given a say. Many argue that Eritrea's separation ignored Ethiopia's right to participate in a decision that affected its very survival as a nation. When Eritrea became independent, Ethiopia lost all its ports and direct access to the Red Sea. This is not just about economics, it is about national security, trade, and identity. Point number 2. Was Eritrea's independence fair? This question remains highly emotional. From the Eritrean perspective, independence was the fruit of a long, painful struggle. They sacrificed tens of thousands of lives to break free from Ethiopian control. For them, the freedom in 1993 was a symbol of self-determination. From the Ethiopian perspective, the process was unfair. The decision excluded over 60 million Ethiopians by then who had a stake in whether their country would remain with access to the sea. Many Ethiopians see it as a forced separation, where Eritrea used military victory and international sympathy to secure independence, without considering Ethiopia's rights. So, was it fair? Legally, Eritrea gained independence under international recognition. But morally and historically, Ethiopia's grievance remained valid. This unresolved question is why the issue of port access continues to haunt both nations. Point number 3. Why sea access matters for Ethiopia. Today, Ethiopia is the most populous landlocked country in the world. With over 120 million people, some estimate 150 plus million. It depends heavily on Djibouti for trade, paying high fees and depending on one fragile corridor. This creates vulnerability. Any disruption, whether political instability in Djibouti, foreign interference or war, can choke Ethiopia's economy. Access to the Red Sea is not just about cheaper trade, it is about strategic survival. Without secure access, Ethiopia's sovereignty feels incomplete. Many Ethiopians believe that the country cannot remain permanently landlocked. Point number 4. Two paths. Peaceful or forceful. When facing such a critical issue, Ethiopia has two options. 1. Peaceful solutions. Ethiopia and Eritrea could negotiate agreements for shared port use. This might involve Ethiopia leasing ports like Asab or Misowa, building joint infrastructure, or entering long-term partnerships that benefit both nations. 2. Forceful solutions. Ethiopia could attempt to retake access through war. Some argue that since Eritrea fought for independence by force, they could also lose it by force. However, this option would be disastrous. Another war between Ethiopia and Eritrea would cost hundreds of thousands of lives, destroy infrastructure, and invite foreign intervention. As peace advocates, we must reject the path of force. The ugliness of war is too familiar. We have seen enough blood, mothers losing children, children growing up without parents, famine following destruction, and endless cycles of revenge. War never ends where it starts. It spreads suffering across generations. Point number 5. Can international law help? You see, international law recognizes the independence of Eritrea. But what about Ethiopia's right to survival? Unfortunately, international law is often slow or limited in addressing historical injustices. Once borders are recognized, they are rarely changed. The United Nations and other bodies generally discourage redrawing boundaries because it sets dangerous precedents worldwide. However, international law also promotes cooperation, economic integration, and human rights. Ethiopia could use legal avenues to argue for guaranteed port access as a matter of survival, much like some landlocked countries have transit rights under international conventions. But here is the truth. International law cannot solve this. The most effective solution must come from direct negotiation between Ethiopia and Eritrea, supported by African institutions like the African Union. Point number 6. The role of foreign powers. Another reality is the involvement of outsiders. Eritrea often aligns with foreign powers such as Egypt, who seek a weak Ethiopia as beneficial. Ethiopia's dam projects on the Nile have created tension with Egypt, which wants to keep Ethiopia dependent. Foreign actors exploit these divisions, funding opposition groups, and fueling mistrust. This makes peace even harder. Both Ethiopia and Eritrea must realize that by fighting each other, they only serve the interest of outsiders. Unity and cooperation are the only ways to protect sovereignty. Point 7. The way forward. So, how can Ethiopia and Eritrea move forward without war? 1. Truth telling. Both sides must acknowledge past injustices. Eritrea should recognize Ethiopia's loss, and Ethiopia should acknowledge Eritrea's painful struggle for independence. 2. Negotiated access. Ethiopia and Eritrea can agree on shared use of ports, perhaps through a 50 or 100-year lease, joint investments, or African Union guarantees. 3. Regional integration. The Horn of Africa must move towards integration, where borders matter less because economies are linked. A strong East African economic bloc would benefit everyone. 4. Reject war. Both peoples must say no to war. Ordinary citizens, mothers, students, elders must demand peace from their leaders. The time of sacrificing lives for political gains must end. Number 8. A message of peace. As Abebe Negash, on behalf of Ethiopian Hearts for Peace and African Hearts for Peace, I appeal to both Ethiopians and Eritreans. Do not let history repeat itself. Do not let our children inherit more graves and hunger. War is not bravery. It is tragedy. The bravery today is in building peace, in turning enemies into partners, in giving hope to the next generation. We have seen the brutality of war. Women assaulted, children orphaned, villages burned. It is enough. Our people are starving already. We cannot add more destruction. Peace is the only way forward. Ethiopia must regain access to the sea, but not through bloodshed. Eritrea must protect its independence, but not by isolating itself or fueling divisions. Together, we can find solutions that guarantee dignity for both. In conclusion, the Ethiopia-Eritrea question is not just about ports. It is about survival, justice, and the future of millions. The past cannot be undone, but the future can be shaped. International law may not resolve everything, but dialogue, courage, and wisdom can. Ethiopians and Eritreans are brothers and sisters divided by politics. The Red Sea should not be a war between us, but a bridge that connects us to the world. Let us choose peace, not war. Let us create solutions that heal wounds instead of opening new ones. This is the mission of Ethiopian Hearts for Peace and African Hearts for Peace. And it is a mission worth fighting for, not with guns, but with truth, compassion, and vision. Thank you very much. Hello, this is Abebe Negash on behalf of Ethiopian Hearts for Peace and African Hearts for Peace. Today, I will summarize the history and the relevant international law principles. They lay out the realistic legal and political routes Ethiopia can use and the practical constraints And I will cite the key sources that support each load-bearing points I am going to bring forth. First,